happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, and welcome to
Rob Shooter. Thank you for having me, Andy.
Rob Shooter of NaughtyGossip.com.
That's right. That's
Correct?
right.
Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
We have a lot of news, and we have some guests at the end of the show, so let's get right to it. The Trump war on LGBT people and people with disabilities is continuing apace.
And his anti-LGBT nominees keep getting approved by the Republican-led Senate.
Terrible. More states passed bans on conversion therapy. That's a good thing, mostly for kids, but also in California, it's banned for everybody.
There's an openly gay teacher that has been bullied out of Kansas.
I'll tell you where he's gone. Two male leaders of the gun control movement, from Parkland, Florida, are going to go to the prom together.
Oh, they are? That's a good one. We also have a new survey that looks at LGBT couples, and we figure out the difference between lesbians and gay couples. This survey claims to know it all.
A man in the United Kingdom was sentenced to life in prison for the intentional transmission of HIV multiple times.
We have an American Idol update that features a lesbian contestant and a drag queen. I think this is the first drag queen ever on American Idol.
And there's a new film that I'm very high on from the director of A Fantastic Woman that looks at same-sex love in the Orthodox community. And it's called Disobedience, with two famous Rachels.
I can't wait. And we also have reviews of the new Donna Summer musical that's opened on Broadway and My Fair Lady, the classic. So we'll tell you what we thought about those two shows a little later on.
And a new a revival of a Conor McPherson play with Matthew Broderick. And our guests at the end of our hour will be Michael Slade and Kevin Spiritus, creators of After Forever, a new TV series on gay love in middle age with a twist.
With a good twist.
You're going to want to stay tuned for that, and you're going to see After Forever. Okay, so we start with a little bit of good news because there were special elections this week, and in New York, Democrats picked up 2 state Senate seats, which they were kind of expected to, but that moves us closer to Democratic control. And we flipped an assembly seat out on Long Island that had been in Republican hands forever. And in Arizona, there was a congressional special election.
Yeah, it got really, really close.
We had no chance of probably of winning it. Trump won the district by 21 points. The Republican only won by 6 points. So the Republicans are kind of terrified at this point, which they should be.
I think the New York Times had a really misleading headline about this. Everybody that I speak to in the know thinks that Republicans should be and are terrified that these margins are getting really, really close. We stood no chance there, and to get, I think, to 5 points?
5 or 6 points. We have to keep up the pressure, because the only way we can put Trump in check is through, having a Senate that won't confirm his bad people. Right. We'll talk about that, and a House that will investigate him.
Absolutely, that will stand up and hopefully do the right thing, but that can't happen unless we get out there and vote.
So what is your take on the bromance between Trump and Emmanuel Macron? Rich, can we put up the picture of, there they are. And they did a lot more than hold hands.
At one point, I think Donald reached to his shoulder and flicked off a little bit of dandruff that I don't really think was there. Macron is immaculately dressed, and I don't think he's a guy that has any dandruff. I think it's very bizarre to watch it. It's almost like watching a David Attenborough sort of wildlife documentary of these two gorillas in the wild. And I think it's this alpha male stuff of touching and grooming. I think at first I thought it was repulsive and awful, and now I think Macron is playing him for everything he's worth and probably doing a good job of it.
He's trying to bring about world peace and against
particularly the Paris
the danger
Accord.
Of Trump.
Yeah, I think he wants the US back in the Paris Agreement, and also
the Iran deal.
The Iran deal are very, very important to him.
Yes.
So we'll see if this works. I do think if history has any any indication here, flattering Donald and making him think the decision's personal might help, and he's certainly doing a good job of that.
Okay, all right. But he's also doing a good job of installing a lot of really horrible people onto the courts. Now, only a couple of these have been stopped so far, but this week the U.S. Senate confirmed, and we have a picture of him for the Fifth Circuit, a candidate named Kyle Duncan. Kyle Duncan believes being transgender is a delusion. He represented the school board against Gavin Grimm, the transgender student. He was the lead counsel in the Hobby Lobby case. He defended North Carolina's law targeting African-American voters. He's just the worst, and he was confirmed 50 to 47.
It's shocking. This guy's record is out there. There should be no surprises here. He certainly isn't hiding who he is or what he believes in, and I think, unfortunately, it's because of what he believes in and who he is that's getting him elected.
Well, these candidates are selected by the religious right. And that is why they will never abandon Trump, because they're getting all these judges who are going to oppose gay rights and oppose women's rights, and of course, abortion rights. That's the main thing that they want. And they're winning.
They are getting through. We also have a story about the 1 million moms who are trying to keep kids out of school if the schools oppose bullying of LGBT students. So what happened out there, Million Moms, Monica Cole sent out an email saying that we should not pull our kids out of school on Friday. It's going to be a day of silence in schools where we try to acknowledge our solidarity with gay and lesbian kids. And now they're trying to very much say we need to fight back and not involve our kids in this.
Well, yeah, the Day of Silence is a thing formed by GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network, right? And it's on April 27th. And I'll tell you something else that's happening that day, or not that day, but right now, actually, for a couple of weeks. The film company that Deborah Chasnoff had, groundspark.org, and then we have the thing up on the air where you can do. They're going to be streaming all their excellent films. It's Elementary, you know these films? All these education films that include little kids talking about gay issues in the schools. So check out groundspark.org/day-of-silence. I'm putting it all up there, and I'll put it in our email, because you can stream these films, you can use them in your classrooms. It's free, and it's wonderful.
And I think, too, people's fear of these films on this day, there's nothing there that's terribly racy, or there's nothing there that's really very controversial. I think it's a day of being accepted.
It's always been controversial talking about homosexuality and kids.
Right.
I mean, when we talk about After Forever, they very nicely put like a 10-year-old in the film.
Yes.
I mean, to show that there's no threat. I mean, that's where we've come.
But I think this day is no more controversial than maybe watching an episode of Ellen or Will and Grace. Kids are watching these shows.
Well, I mean, I'll jump ahead a little bit, because I'll talk about that Kansas teacher. I mean, he was an art teacher in Namaha Central High School in Seneca in Kansas, and he came out last October for National Coming Out Day. And there he is. His name is Michael Hill, and he started receiving constant anonymous threats that they were going to kill him, that people punctured tires on his car, and he just said, "I can't take any more. I'm going back to Palm Springs." So the school said what happened to him was very unfortunate. We don't approve of this kind of thing, but we can't find out who did it. Right.
Yeah, anonymous threats, and coming out on Coming Out Day is certainly the day one should be able to do this with some sort of peace. And the response to this has been amazing. And so I've heard a little bit of backlash, though. Some people are saying the guy should have stayed put and fight.
You try it. No, I mean, I worked in education for many years, and there are very few teachers, even in the New York City public school systems, who are out to their students. These days, people come out to their colleagues.
Yes.
Oh, I'm gay, want to meet my husband, blah, blah, blah. All right. But talking to the kids about it, they feel it gives the kids power to, sit there and just go, whatever, in the back of the room, and it just becomes disruptive, and it's hard.
No, you're right. And the pioneers, the people that are doing it, really are pioneers. Hopefully in a few years, not too many, this will be perfectly normal and we won't think of anything.
I hope so. All right. Let's get back to, another school story comes out of Parkland, Florida. Two of the most famous students involved in the gun control movement, Carson Caskey and David Hogg. You recognize them.
Here they are.
They're going to go to the prom together.
They have. They've announced that they're off to the prom together. Now, they have not actually said if they are gay or straight, or if they're going to the prom as a couple or a couple of friends. But either way, I think these two are fantastic, incredibly brave, and young people are following them on Instagram. This isn't about people like us. This is like people that are young and in school and seeing them, and good luck to them. It looks like it's going to be a great day. The prom is meant to be glamorous and festive. There's also going to be a moment during the prom where they remember all the people that were tragically killed.
Outrageously, and that's what they're fighting. But Tony Perkins, the psycho, not the movie Psycho, but the guy who runs I believe it's the Family Research Council, he is sending out a fundraiser. He wants $5 million to stop things like kids going to the prom together of the same sex or teaching about this in schools. I mean, if you're still giving people like this money, it's good money after bad.
What's
You're
amazing,
not going to win.
What's amazing about this, though, is Mr. Perkins, and I'm being kind there, is making no bones about this. He's not pretending. Often I think people pretend to be outraged and they don't acknowledge why they're doing this to raise money. Yeah. He's actually outright saying this is about money, and if we're going to stop days like this and if we're going to stop couples like those two going to the prom together, we need to raise, I think, $5 million. And so he's encouraging his followers to send hard cash.
The suckers. But there is a serious threat from the Education Department, from Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education. This week, she rescinded 72 guidance documents to help parents and educators understand the rights of disabled students. She's also dismissing hundreds of civil rights complaints as burdensome to the department, and this includes on the basis of sexual orientation, which they don't want to deal with anyway, but 500 disability complaints. I mean, where are the people with the pitchforks at this point?
I think that they would argue this is part of rolling back regulations. And it's something...
sure. Let's take the brakes off the cars and find out who knows how to drive.
You make a very good point. Regulations are around for a reason, and I think as society evolves and changes, we get more regulations. We didn't have computers many years ago. That's now why we have so many regulations, or maybe not enough on the internet and computers. So they would argue that.
On the other hand, the Department of Health and Human Services wants to put more regulations on how you help prevent teen pregnancy. You can only do it through abstinence. That's the only way they want you to do it. And this is a big threat to LGBT youth. Lesbian, gay, bisexual youth, by the way, are 2 times more likely to be involved in a pregnancy. Sounds counterintuitive, but they get bullied. They want to prove that they're not, so they do, and they experiment more. I mean, I remember working with kids, and we had these lesbians who thought, well, I can't get pregnant, I'm a lesbian. No! If you do it with a guy, you get pregnant.
You could get pregnant.
So
there's a story out there talking about money too, that Focus on the Family has been reclassified as a church. And the reason that this has happened is now they are tax exempt. This is going to save this organization millions and millions of dollars. That money they can use pushing their agenda even more forward, even further forward. Shocking that this got approved, but it did get approved.
It doesn't make any difference, but they worship a false god. All right, the Affordable Care Act. Trump is rolling back the rule that providers can't discriminate based on gender identity. They said they're doing it because some federal judge in Texas found parts of this unconstitutional, but I mean, that's not been resolved. So they're issuing a new rule, and people are going to be able to discriminate. This is all being brought by Catholic and Christian medical associations who don't want to treat transgender people decently.
I think that's ultimately what the bottom of that is of getting to. They're arguing there's too many regulations again and too many rules. This is about discriminating against gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people.
But how about Thomas Roberts fighting back? Now, you may remember we were very upset with Thomas Roberts when we were protesting the Russians over their anti-gay laws back in 2013, right before the Sochi Olympics. He went off to, when Andy Cohen said, I'm not going to do the Miss Universe pageant because of these anti-gay laws, not because of Trump, who was running it at that time, but because of these anti-gay laws. Thomas Roberts stepped in, who also worked at NBC, and said, I'll do it. Well, now he's donating $25,000 that he made, apparently on this. Doesn't sound like very much, but to HRC, the Human Rights Campaign.
Thomas is talking out. Thomas is also saying, too, that Donald Trump, who claims he left Russia that night, so there can be no tape of him getting into mischief with two ladies of the night in Russia. Thomas is now saying Donald definitely stayed the night.
Right.
So I think Thomas suddenly has come forward. It's interesting. He's a man without a network at the moment. I don't think he's still on MSNBC. And
That's right. That's right.
maybe this will help get him back.
And it's nice to see Stormy Daniels saying that if she wins her case, she's going to donate the $130,000 to Planned Parenthood.
She is. I have a story on Stormy Daniels that Vivid Entertainment, one of the world's largest adult entertainment companies, told me that they're going to offer Stormy, or have offered Stormy, $1 million to make an X-rated movie with a Donald Trump look-alike. I think Alec Baldwin would be terrific, but I don't think Alec has said yes yet. I don't know if Stormy has, but the more embarrassment that she can create, it's just delightful. And I think what's so great about this...
How can you embarrass Donald Trump?
But you can't embarrass her either. So he's met their match. They've literally, this battle has become like the Avengers. They're both sort of equally prepared for this.
Well, when Rudy Giuliani signed on to the legal team this week, I sort of felt that's an acknowledgement that they're going down.
If your choice of lawyers is Rudy, and whatever you might think about him, I think most people in the legal community would say he's past his peak there. I think this is not a good sign. He's claiming that he will be able to end the investigation in 2 weeks, which is just nonsense. I saw him the night before the divorce was announced in Midtown at Scotto's restaurant eating pasta with his wife. And they looked very, very happy to me. So something happened between the main
with all my ex-partners. I mean, you will see me dining with them sometimes.
There you go, Rudy.
All right. NASA, right? The Senate confirmed this Jim Bridenstine to head the agency. He's a climate change denialist and anti-LGBT. He was only confirmed 50 to 49 because people said, he's totally unequipped to do this job. I mean, that's what's happening.
The 50 know this too, and I think at this point, they just don't want to rock the boat. I think to be one or two to stand out, you're going to get the Twitter response of Donald that they're probably terrified of. So I guess it's easier to just say yes and go along.
So the Senate elections are very important this year.
Very important.
That's the only way to stop some of these
and you only need they only need to flip one. Two would be safe.
All right. Now, I don't like to talk about this person. We don't usually do stories on him, but this Milo Yiannopoulos, right? He showed up at a Manhattan restaurant called Churchill's, I think it was, and the Democratic Socialists of America were having some sort of event there, and they started chanting Nazi scum, and he left, and he's whining about it.
He's a very complicated young gentleman. When he got in trouble with his book publisher, that ultimately won for this $1 million book that they withdrew from him, his people called me that night to see if I would come along and join the team and help out. And I absolutely wanted no part of it.
Well, he didn't get in trouble for being, anti a lot of things. It was for sort of approving of underage sex.
Yes. And it was interesting. The only time being in trouble seemed to upset Milo to the point where he was going to pay professionals to join his team and get him out of it was when money was on the table. So this book deal seemed to be worth so much to him that he certainly didn't want it to go away. I think now that after being fired by Breitbart, losing the book deal, I don't know where he gets his source of income anymore. The Mercer family, who were great fans of his and I think financed a lot of his web activities, have gone away. So I think we're going to hear less and less of him, hopefully.
Well, we hope. Mike Pompeo was confirmed this week by the Senate. He's going to be our new Secretary of State. Chuck Todd was on, and he's talking about Pompeo, and he says, the opposition, they're opposed to him, the Democrats, because he doesn't support same-sex marriage. No, Chuck. You don't support him because he was asked, you've described homosexuality as a perversion. Would you care to modify that statement? And he just said, I respect everybody, and they let him go. Right. And he also is extremely anti-Muslim, right. And there are a lot of Muslim nations in the world that he's going to try to relate to.
And it's not changed his tune. Like, he's still saying this. Or actually, he's not. He's saying nothing, which might be even worse. We have this story too this week that there's a new study out on gay couples, saying gay couples are less likely to break up. Let me tell you about this.
Gay male couples.
Gay male couples.
Less likely than lesbians.
Less likely than lesbians to break
Who
up.
knew?
Who knew? So this was published in the Couple and Family Psychology. And what they did is they found over 500 couples in Vermont and asked them a ton of questions. And the results found that age, the longer relationship length, or the better quality of the relationship were factors in keeping a relationship together. They found no correspondence between lower income and children or not having children. But they did find that gay male couples were less likely to break up than lesbians.
No, there you are. And there was another survey done of over 45s. I don't know how they consider that old, but by AARP of LGBT people. And they found that gay men are single at the rate of over 45, at the rate of 57% are single over the age of 45, and 46% live alone. 39% of lesbians are single, and 36% live alone. And this may not comport with your other study from Vermont, but it was Vermont. Gay men also report less social support. And, well, you can read it for yourself. We have a website. We'll put it up.
I wonder why these studies are all in Vermont.
No, this one wasn't.
Oh, right.
This is a nationwide survey of over 45s. Hey, we got some good news from Alabama. I never heard of this place. Montevallo has become the second city in the state to pass LGBTQ protections for us. Isn't that nice?
Good
right down
for
there
you. We should have to check
Alabama.
them out. Have to check them out. What else do we have going on? We also have Massachusetts schools are going to now offer LGBT themed courses. These are not going to be mandatory, but they are going to emphasize the history of the community, some of our great writers. It's going to be in history and education and English, proving a ton of those stories.
Well, the best thing that we could do is integrate LGBT history into American history, because it is American history, and it, you know.
And I think that's what they're doing. The first schools that are going to do this are going to be in Boston, and so congratulations. I think this is a great addition to the curriculum, and not just being taught gay students, being taught the entire class there, which I think is important for everybody to know this history.
Well, and in the Chicago area, Oak Park and River Forest High School's board adopted a policy protecting transgender students. So at the local level, people are speaking up and doing what they can in the face of all these assaults from the federal government. And in California, the Assembly passed a bill declaring conversion therapy consumer fraud. So that means you can't do it with adults either, or you're guilty of fraud. Most places just ban it for minors, as the New Hampshire Senate did this past week. And that goes to Governor Chris Sununu after it goes to conference committee. What do you think about the Joy Reid controversy? She's an MSNBC. She was guilty of making some mildly homophobic comments about Charlie Crist. We've kind of talked about him on this show too. But now they've dug up some other stuff, and she says about being disgusted with gay kissing or gay marriage. And she says, I didn't write this. Yeah, I was hacked. I don't know. We know about being hacked. So.
Yeah, it's a tricky story. Joy has become such a leader of the resistance and so sort of like vocal about supporting gay, lesbian, transgender people. This was really hurtful. So I think about 10 years ago, she had a blog, and on the blog there was some stuff too about Brokeback Mountain at the time and how she couldn't see that film. She didn't like the thought of seeing it.
But we don't know if she said that. She's denying this.
Well, at first she said she apologized, and now more has come out, and now she's saying that information was doctored. I think we've all said terrible things in our past. We've all done things we're not proud of.
On this show. Stop the tape. Let's go back. We have done that once.
And I'd hate to think that something you said in your past that you truly regret is going to define who you are.
Just say you regret it.
Yes. But this thing about they were doctored, I was hacked, it wasn't me, I think it starts getting very murky.
Okay. All right. Joy, we'll see what happens to you. In Louisiana, they want to pass a bill to strengthen the law against bestiality. This is happening around the country, animal protection, right? It's opposed by conservatives because they say, you're going to, pardon the expression, this is a backdoor way to strike down the anti-sodomy statute. You're going to separate bestiality from sodomy, and then you're going to try to get rid of it. They still have an anti-sodomy law in Louisiana. It can't be enforced because of the federal Constitution, but help is on the way from the Trump Supreme Court, which could reinstitute the sodomy laws in many states if they choose to do so.
The verbal gymnastics that people are finding themselves in on the far right, and the things they are having to approve or not approve to get to the end conclusion that they want, I find fascinating.
Yeah.
I find fascinating.
They hate us.
They don't like us.
They
don't
really hate us.
like us, and I think that
We're the chosen people in that regard.
I'd forgot how much they didn't like us.
Yeah.
I'd lived in a world, particularly here in America, for at least the last 8-10 years, where I felt really accepted.
You live in Chelsea, in the same place I do.
It's like the community. It's like a school board down
Well,
there. But no, I
we're in our
always get
bubble.
surprised. I always get surprised, and it's important to be surprised and important to read this stuff.
Okay. All right. We keep telling you about people who call themselves Christians or run businesses who want the right to discriminate against us. Now, here's another case. It's the Brush and Nib Studio, run by evangelicals. They don't want to create wedding invitations for same-sex weddings.
Right.
They said, if you want to buy something that's on the shelf that we've made, you can buy it. We're not going to discriminate against you.
Which wouldn't work, because what's on the shelf is not for same-sex couples.
Well,
it's not like a birthday card that's neutral.
These are tough issues, and we've discussed them endlessly on this program. I mean, you know, if you make wedding cakes for straight couples, you should be able to make wedding cakes for gay couples. I mean, that's before the Supreme Court right now, and we're going to find out in June what they decide.
But a cake's a cake. Do you know what I mean? It's not. You know,
I mean, publishers are allowed not to publish books or pornography if they don't want to, or messages that they don't want to. And we can't make you write on the cake something that you don't want to write.
Right.
But that they're relentless on this.
They won't give this one up.
We'll see what happens.
And I think that this one has given them so much attention and so much publicity. This is one that I think they're going to hold on to, because it gets their name out there, it gets their business out there. And I hate to admit this, but some businesses have actually thrived because of this.
Right.
Some have been punished, and some have
Punished, as they say in Romeo and Juliet.
That's right.
I was up in the Bronx for the Abel Cedeno case. I've told you about this. I've been covering this from the beginning. This is the kid who was protecting himself against bullying. He had a knife. The knife ended up going into the other guy, and the other guy died, and who was beating the crap out of him. But they're trying to get an order of protection for him and his family, because the kid who he killed was a gang member, and they all want to kill his family. It's talk about Romeo and Juliet. And so they're having a great deal of difficulty getting this order of protection from the DA in the Bronx. Anyway, you can read about it in Gay City News. I'll send it around. All right, international news?
Yes, fire in.
All right, Trinidad and Tobago, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights welcomed the High Court decision there, striking down the anti-buggery law. That's the phrase you people came up with when you started colonizing the world. And and this commission is part of the Organization of American States, and we're part of that.
Right.
So that's good.
It's amazing over there. I think particularly too, there was a conference in London a couple of weeks ago that the young royals attended.
Yes.
And they're speaking out. Meghan and Harry are making it very clear that gay rights are human rights. And I think within the Commonwealth, their voice has an enormous amount of power.
But they're not supposed to do this, the royals, and they're doing it now. How are they getting away with this?
I think that this new generation of royals thinks it's ridiculous, the old rules.
Yes.
And they're going to say what they want. And, you know, they're careful about it. They're not out there with posters and protesting.
Well,
but they're just...
That's a big one in the Commonwealth.
And just a few words from that family can be so powerful. Good for them, and it's Harry that's really leading the way here. Harry and Meghan.
And Meghan is a big human rights activist and women's rights activist.
And he's head over heels. So if she drags him into
she's marrying into the patriarchy.
she probably doesn't know the rules yet either, which is why she's being so naughty.
Except for the fact that they have changed the line of succession, so that if it's
no longer the
William's
first child.
daughter is in line before this son that was just born. Got that? Okay, it's progress, believe it or not.
Progress.
All right, Indonesia, they're holding off on a bill to recriminalize same-sex activity. They're already pretty anti-gay, but they don't have a law against sodomy, and they're holding off on this. They want more public feedback. In India, they still have an anti-sodomy law, but they passed a bill for trans protections last year, and the number of transgender people who registered to vote doubled as a result. Because they feel they can put their names on things and be out and all that.
And let's hope that once they come out and are seen, these laws stay around to protect them.
Now, I didn't know Pakistan had one school for trans youth. They now have 2 more in Karachi. It's a group called the Gender Guardian, and they run these high schools and schools. Actually, it's 12 years of school for students who are transgender.
Fantastic.
They don't treat gay people there particularly well. But these,
It's interesting because I think the anti-gay laws have been on the books for so long that it's more difficult to maybe correct that than to move forward with the trans laws. I don't know. I'm assuming that's the case.
And Italy made progress for same-sex couples registering their kids. It was very, very difficult because of the surrogacy laws there. They were very anti that. And 3 same-sex couples were allowed to do this in turn for their kids, and in other words, both parents at the same time. Very, very good.
Extraordinary. And to consider how much power the Catholic Church still has over that country, this is real progress.
Yeah, and El Salvador, where also the Catholic Church has a lot of power, they passed a policy to protect LGBT populations to make sure that legal and administrative processes are administered fairly for us. And that's a breakthrough in El Salvador.
Step by step.
Yes, and then the Cayman government, on the other hand, which is a possession, of Britain.
Yes, it is.
They're being sued because they won't allow same-sex marriages. And the Brits could order that in that case, but they're not.
And they're not.
Yeah.
And I think over time, hopefully they will. But at the moment, you're right, they could step in and they're remaining silent. In the past, though, they might have fought against us. So just their silence, as pathetic as that sounds, is some progress.
Okay, and in Thailand, they have a new law that would institute registered life partnerships. It's in the works for same-sex couples. The current bill only focuses on asset management for gay couples, but they say this is a step. That's where you start.
We'll take the step.
And if you can't get it, get your wills in order, folks.
That's right.
But we have marriage here, so we can get protections that way. AIDS news. Hell hath frozen over. Chuck Schumer's come out for the legalization of marijuana. And
I think Cynthia Nixon pushed this into the debate. Whether or not she wins, we don't know. She's quite far behind at the moment.
But
I think she's changing the agenda. I saw her on television on the Colbert Show where she was really forceful about this and she's spoken out about it. And I think in the same way that Bernie Sanders added things to the platform, she's doing that.
Yeah, I don't like it when she's compared to Trump because she doesn't have government experience. I mean, she certainly has a lot of experience in politics and in education and all these issues.
Right. Well, it's the celebrity thing. People are saying that they're both celebrities. What they're not saying is that she has an enormous amount of experience that she's done for a very long time. That's been overshadowed by her work in Sex and the City.
The guy she's running against, Andrew Cuomo, had a famous name too.
As she likes to point out. As she likes to point out.
But in the United Kingdom, in AIDS news, this guy named Darryl Rowe, 27 years old from Brighton, there he is. He was sentenced to life in prison. Now, this is the first case of prosecution of someone for deliberate HIV transmission. And, we're fighting that. We're fighting the criminalization of HIV. But in his case, he infected 5 people. He tried to infect 12 others. He refused treatment for HIV because he didn't believe that he was drinking his own urine and he thought that cured him of it. All right. And then he was poking holes in condoms with the guys that he was with, and then he was taunting them afterwards. I gave you HIV.
This became such a massive story in Britain. This was on the covers of the newspapers. It really was a public outcry about this. I think what made this so especially upsetting was the fact that they found him with a rucksack of condoms that he had poked holes in. He was going out of his way to do this.
I mean, and your advice is bring your own condoms. I mean, we always tell you there are always people out there who don't care whether they infect someone else. Obviously, that's not the majority of anything, but there are people out there who don't care, so you can protect yourself. You have to protect yourself. But if somebody's handing you a condom and then...
Yeah, I would think that would be a safe activities. I mean, it's awful we've got to that stage, but maybe bring your own condoms.
And get on PrEP. And of course, he was not getting on the HIV drugs.
Yeah, he didn't
which
believe
would
in
have
the
made
science.
which he wouldn't have been infectious if he had done that.
Right. It's still PrEP over in Britain is still in the very, very early stages.
They don't want to pay for it at the NHS.
They don't want to pay for it, and also
I thought they were being ordered to, though.
They are being. They're going to do it, but it's not just the money here. The conversation which happened in America quite loudly is still whispered in Britain. People are not talking about it yet in the way that they do here.
Right. And the NHS, by the way, is the National Health Service, the jewel in the crown of really
Well,
of
the
Britain.
thing is about the NHS, it's terrific to get the free medicine, but they don't have the budget to advertise it like they would here.
Okay.
So when it's a private company selling PrEP, they put a lot of money behind it to let you know about it because they want to make the money. They want you to buy it. In Britain, there's nobody really pushing this.
They were better at advertising the threat of AIDS when it started happening in the early 80s than under Margaret Thatcher than Ronald Reagan was. All right, entertainment news. We have to get to all our entertainment news.
We have a lot of it
because
today.
We have Rob Shooter from naughtygossip.com. Are you going to start off with Hello Dolly?
Hello Dolly. So Hello Dolly, Bette Midler is going back into Hello Dolly. She's going to be back for 6 more weeks.
Starting July 17th.
They looked for several different people to take the role. After Bette finishes the 6 weeks, the show's closing. So they did look at other dollies.
Bernadette Peters is doing it now.
And doing a great job, great reviews. I think they need like a real superstar to sell the tickets, especially during the summer to the tourists. I was told Whoopi Goldberg's been in 4 times to see the show, so maybe Whoopi. Also, Sarah Jessica Parker's name was a name that came up. I think she was the 2nd or the 3rd Annie on Broadway.
She was.
And now coming back all these years later as Dolly Levi. It didn't work out, so it's going to be Bette.
Outgate Tony winner Gavin Creel is coming back to the show.
Yep.
David Hyde Pierce also out is back, and he said Bette Midler is a crazy woman. And I can't wait to get back on stage with her.
She's saying she's having the most fun of her life.
The road show starts October 2nd, and who's doing it?
Betty Buckley.
There you go.
That's an unusual choice.
It is. Yes, it is an unusual
choice.
Why not? She's going to stretch her chops. All right, you want to hear what I have to say about My Fair Lady?
Oh, I hope it's good.
I love this show.
I love this show.
I love this show, and it's directed by Bartlett Sher, who does such a great job most of the time. Lauren Ambrose is very good as Eliza. You remember her from
For
6
Feet Under, the daughter.
Harry Haddon Patton is the guy who was on...
Handsome guy from Downton Abbey.
Who went out with the homely sister.
Yes.
Very lovely as Higgins, and it's a great treat to see Diana Rigg as Mrs. Higgins, his mother, right? So all that is great. And Alan Corduner, the out actor, is Pickering, right? But Bartlett Sher has turned the role of Zoltan, who's the guy who tries to smoke out Eliza at the embassy ball. It's a small role.
Yes, indeed. He tries to find out the accent, where she's really from.
He has turned him, it was played by Theodore Bickel in the movie. He has turned that role into a fag joke. So down he comes the stairs, mincing like this, so that the audience will say, ha 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 ha, ha, he's a faggot. And it was just very offensive. Don't do it. I'm going to write to all of them and say, change this. You don't need to do this. The other gay thing in it, which is weird, is, should I tell this? Because it's a surprise. I'm not objecting to this, but when Alfred B. Doolittle sings I'm Getting Married in the Morning, the drab bar opens and becomes a music hall with can-can girls and boys dressed as can-can girls all getting kissed by Alfred P. Doolittle. And you're sitting there like, where am I?
Le Cage au Vol.
Exactly.
What is going on? I'm surprised about the very flamboyant gay portrayal. This was a show that was so careful about the tone of the Me Too movement
and the feminism, and because it's a show about a guy who's pretty abusive to women, Henry Higgins.
I think that there's a scene where suffragettes have been added, which might have been a good tip of the hat to what's going on in the world. And I think the ending, not to give it away, I have not seen it yet, has been changed slightly.
I won't tell you about that either. When we see Harry Potter, we won't talk about the secret
tomorrow
there.
night.
Yes, we are. We'll have that next week. And I also saw Conor McPherson is one of my favorite playwrights, The Seafarer. It's a revival at the Irish Rep, so it's in a nice small theater. And Matthew Broderick is the star playing the devil. There he is.
Wow. Was Matthew
with Andy Murray there and Colin McPhillamy. The rest of the cast is very Irish. I mean, it's very funny. But it's scary. It's actually scary
I like that.
thinking about hell and going to hell. I don't believe in this, but it scared me.
I might believe in it. How is Matthew?
I thought Matthew was fine, and he's bringing a lot of star power to the show.
And selling, I guess, a lot of tickets.
The Seafarer.
Good for
They've
Matthew.
extended it, yes.
I went to see the Donna Summer musical called Summer on Broadway.
Yes.
It is a jukebox musical full of her hits.
Yes.
It's fun to dance.
Yeah.
It's fun to get out of your seat and shake your bottom. Otherwise, this is a show that probably should be missed. It is not the most successful jukebox musical. And the awful thing about seeing this is that there was real drama in her life. There was stuff that could have been really juicy and dramatic, all of which they glossed over. The most offensive part of it, though, is that what happened in her real life about her attitude, words towards gay men that she denies, but there was words that she allegedly said about AIDS and also about Adam and Eve and Adam and Steve. That has been turned into a little afterthought at the end of the show that is so glossed over, it's almost offensive.
Okay.
Almost offensive.
Well, and this was by the Jersey Boys book writers, wasn't it?
Des McAnuff, who did Jersey Boys, was the director.
Yeah.
It's not good, and I really went
too bad.
looking to have a great night. There's a really wonderful ending and there's confetti falling from the ceiling, so maybe that will keep you interested. But it's an odd.
Ann and I were
choice.
supposed to see it tonight, but they canceled our tickets, not just because they said they had a mix-up and offered us tickets down the road. But you were saying...
I don't know if I would cancel my dinner reservation.
All right. What's going on American Idol? I'm not...
American Idol!
You and Ann are the fans.
This
so
is
tell
my
me.
show. American Idol is back. It is not doing very well. Nobody's watching American Idol. This year, I might stop watching it myself. So they have two contestants. One is a drag performer, the first open drag performer on the show, Ada Vox. There she is looking absolutely fantastic. But not only does he look great, sings like a demon. Without doubt, one of the greatest singers on the show since Jennifer Hudson, who, let me remind you, came in 8th. Jennifer Hudson.
Wow.
So last week was the first week where the public got to vote and to keep their top 10. They did not support our friend there. The judges seemed really stunned about this, and Katy Perry was the one that finally had the chutzpah to stand up and to save the performer and put them in the top 10. I don't know where the votes are coming from American Idol. I don't
Maybe
think they're
from
coming,
Russia.
I don't think they're coming from New York City. There's also an out lesbian on the show, Janine, I think her name is. Young, beautiful girl. There she is, married to a female soldier who's in the audience every week, cheering her on. Once again, we got down to the public voting. She was not voted through. The judges jumped up and down again and saved her, which is all good and well, and I love that they're being saved. But America, we have to vote for these people. Not only because, but they're the most talented.
Vote in the midterms.
When you put
right?
it like that.
Put that on your calendar.
We probably have bigger troubles.
Maybe get used to voting.
Last time we let America vote, something terrible happened.
They don't let you text your vote, though.
So it's shocking out there. Maybe American Idol viewers are not supporting the people that we are.
I see that the Glee star, Kevin McHale, who played the kid in the wheelchair,
Yes.
well, he's been out about having a relationship with a guy, but now he says he's gay.
Right. We had to handle these people very carefully as reporters. Whenever we would be invited to interview the Glee kids, they always were very careful, the publicists and the studio, to handle it carefully. And I think to the most part people did. So now finally these kids are coming out. I wish they'd done it while the show was still really
Well,
popular.
Gus Kenweather, was out, the snowboarder, and he now has 1 million followers on Instagram. These people could run the next election because they have I'm serious. They have real followers. Let's get them political.
They have real followers.
So they're going to make a biopic about Elton John. Who's going to play him?
Oh, let me guess and see if I get it right.
Oh, you didn't know?
I think I might know, but
I got a picture of him.
Let me have a look.
Karen. Edgerton.
A British guy from...
I hope so.
Yeah, a British guy, terribly talented. The Kingsman was the big movie he was in.
Yes.
The name that was up too was Justin Timberlake.
Oh.
Justin Timberlake was a name that was batted around to play Elton for a long time.
That would work.
Would work too. Both great choices. I love this.
Okay, and Lance Bass and Michael Turchin, they're a couple, and they are set to be dads. Look at them, they're ready for fatherhood.
They actually spoke about this. One of the reasons Lance said he married this handsome devil was because he thought he would make a great father, and they're quite far along in the process. I think they've looked at surrogates and have filled out the paperwork and got contracts and lawyers involved. So these two are going to be a dad soon. Maybe Justin Timberlake can be the god dad. Back to Justin.
Call Me By Your Name was banned in China. I don't have time. We're down to our last minute, so I'm not going to run the clip this week. I'll put it in the email. I want to recommend the film Disobedience from the director of A Fantastic Woman, Sebastian Lelio. But this film is set in London in the Orthodox Jewish community with Rachel Weisz, and who's a prodigal daughter coming back to her, her father who's died, and Rachel McAdams as a woman in the life who's married to Alessandro Nivola. So many great performances in this. It's so intense, so beautifully observed, and I liked it a lot more than Call Me By Your Name. And it was I mean, it's lesbian, but it's hotter, I thought. And well, what does that say about me? I don't know. But I was very interested in the characters and what happened. Disobedience is in theaters starting on Friday, and we should get to our guests, should we not?
I can't wait.
We are now joined by 2 Emmy nominees, not for this show, although they should get one for it. We are joined by Michael Slade, who is a playwright, librettist, TV writer, and children's book author, and Kevin Spirtus, who you might remember as Dr. Craig Wesley on Days of Our Lives,
Yes,
folks.
Dr. Craig.
Yes, but it had a long TV and film career, actually of 30 years, although I don't know, you must have started when you were 5. All right, but the show that you've created is called After Forever. You call it a story about love, loss, and new beginnings. I'd call it a TV series about a middle-aged gay couple with a twist. It's very funny, very deeply moving, and we have the trailer. Before we talk to you, let's look at the trailer.
That'd be great.
Do you miss Jason?
Yeah, I do.
Happy anniversary!
A small piece for me, please.
Watching our waist.
I love every inch of him.
And a couple of us know exactly how many inches that is.
Are you dating anyone?
No.
It's been over a year.
Lisa's been making lists.
I haven't been making lists. I've just been thinking about who I know.
The waiter from brunch thought you were very sexy.
He's 21 years old.
He's into older guys.
You will have a life after Jason. Your friends will make sure of it.
Nice tie.
Yours too.
You're welcome.
There's this writer I've been working with. He's super hot.
I don't know what it was.
That's what's fucking selfish, Brian.
You're the best thing that has ever happened to me. I can't imagine living without you.
You don't have to.
So that ought to have gotten you interested in this project. There's a lot to tease there. What is this project and what got you into it?
Michael? Well, what is this project? As you said, it was really important to us to be doing a story about gay men who were 50-ish. You know, we disappear from the movies, we disappear from television, once we're not 30, and then we sort of come back as Christopher Plummer with a cat down the hall, being totally asexual, and that's just not acceptable anymore.
Michael was a writer on Days of Our Lives just as I was leaving the show, and I never knew him. I only knew his name on the script because they keep the writers in this.
They keep you. They don't want you to talk.
But one day, I had moved back to New York at this point, and I hear across the stairmaster at the gym, "Are you Kevin Spirtus?" And I said yes, and he introduced himself, and
And I said, I wrote for you right before you left Days of Our Lives. It wasn't my fault.
So you created this together.
But we created this together. And Kevin said, I've been thinking about wanting to create a series, and we should talk. And
web series were very popular. They were just starting to really boom. And I thought, what could I write about? And Michael said, well, he's got some ideas that he wanted to write about, and that's kind of how
we sort of took some of him and some of me, and
it blended together
it
beautifully well.
Show.
How important was it to keep it so real and sexual and emotional? There's a lot of sex in this.
Yes,
because
it was really
in their
important.
50s are still real and sexual and able and virile
and I think in anything I write, keeping it real and keeping it honest is really is paramount.
We also didn't want to do it over the top, hyper extensive.
And I think it's one of the things that's speaking to audiences is that people connect because it's real. People connect because the emotions are real. People connect because the people they're saying are fully dimensional.
But why is it so rare? Is it difficult to find funding for this? Like, there should be so much more of this.
Oh, God.
You're right.
Yeah.
But why? Is it just people are pitching these stories, or?
Well, I mean, I can't speak definitively, but who runs studios? Who's run marketing campaigns? You look at. There's always a study of who's going to go to this? Who's going to buy tickets to this? And that's 10% of the population. Is that worth us spending this much money on? I think it's changing, and I think we're proving that proving that there's crossover, and just because it is a gay couple doesn't mean that straight people aren't loving the series also.
And that and there were non-gay characters as well. You got Anita Gillette for
we've
this.
got the brilliant
Lenny Wolfe.
Anita
Oh my God! Oh, sorry, hit the mic. Yes, they are fantastic.
Did I notice Candy Hoffman
Katie Hoffman.
from the producers?
Who won a Tony for the producers and is now in Chicago on Broadway.
Wow. Katie steals the show.
We're dancing around a little bit. People are going to. How would you tell people what it's about? You kind of have a secret here, but you do have a twist.
The secret's out as of yesterday.
The story is that there's this couple, Brian and Jason, and they've been together for 15 years. They're married, and out of nowhere, Jason winds up with a horrible cancer diagnosis, and makes the decision that he is not going to do treatment because the treatment is not going to do anything other than maybe buy him a couple of extra weeks or a month.
Right.
And all the friends around this couple, straight and gay, have to kind of start to position themselves and deal with this pending loss. And
Brian has to deal with it, and much of the story is told through flashback.
Yeah.
And
some other ways.
As we start to move forward.
And Mitchell Anderson always stays around in the story.
And yes, because you say this well.
When Michael and I were discussing how you create loss via death of someone, and I asked you personally, and I know from my experience, not having married someone or lost an intimate relationship, but when someone dies, the relationship doesn't end. The love does not end, and it continues on, and that's sort of where we have After Forever come in to play. So we have a way of creating Jason's character with Brian and the way they communicate and the way they...
We're all being very coy, and I'm not going to give it away, but it's another reason why you have to watch this, because it's an extraordinary twist that I certainly didn't see coming. I certainly didn't.
I didn't know anything about it, but I also so it was also very, obviously what you said, that these are real characters, and that made it interesting, and it was very funny.
It's very funny, and the subject shouldn't be that funny.
No, but life is funny. I mean that's the difference to me between something that's real and something that isn't. There's humor in the worst of times,
but it is so moving. I mean, the way you handle the nuances of loss. And of these relationships and dealing with illness. Was there a particular place that this relationship that you developed this concept from, and was there somebody who you had in mind?
I lost my partner to this specific diagnosis 5 years ago, and thank you. And part of the creation of this was cathartic.
I asked Michael, I said, we were talking about relationships, and he asked me one day, why is someone like you single? And I went, have you eaten dinner with me? You know, truthfully, I sort of threw the question back to Michael, and he said he had lost his partner. And I remember that day looking at you going, okay, can we use that? Because that is really, it didn't, you know, but we talked about it.
No,
it was something that dropped in at the right time.
It was something that I was ready to deal with from an artistic place.
Nora Ephron said everything is copy.
Everything's a copy. Absolutely.
But you know, the other I would say unique thing about this is these are short episodes. They're about how long?
They average 11 minutes. And you know, one of the things that was also a great challenge and ultimately great fun in the writing was, you know, you look at a lot of these short form series, and what they really are is there's one scene. Right. It's not an episode. It's a scene. Yeah. And it was very important to the two of us to create episodes that, though 11 minutes, they have a beginning, a middle, and end. They have a full arc. They don't feel like they're 11 minutes. They feel like you've watched a half-hour episode. Right. Not because it's gone on too long, but because it's been fulfilling.
Altogether, they tell this whole story.
Right. As a complete package, it's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary.
It's 8 episodes, and it flies by fast. And you
about an hour and a half.
Yeah, you can binge watch the season in a little under 90 minutes.
Did you think about that when you were writing it? Was this something that you thought we could? Yeah.
And are you thinking of extending these very interesting characters?
If we watch it,
yes, we have. We have.
How can people watch it? You better tell people.
We're on Amazon Prime, which
and you get it free if you're on Amazon, and
if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get it for free. If you don't, you can purchase it on the Amazon Prime site.
Did they get it right away when you went into Amazon and pitched this? They were.
There's platforms that you can find places to house it on. Right. And this was one of the ones that we wanted.
It's the perfect place for this. It's easy to access, and it's the perfect type of show that I think they want.
I think Michael and I had also talked about. We didn't want to write the typical quote-unquote soap opera, and we wanted to be able to drop this into the media world and let it ripple through and show people that even though it is gay thematic, it's a universal theme. We're all going to deal with loss. Yes. Or we have.
You didn't do the typical gay thing either. I mean, in the beginning you have the friends gossiping and all that. And I'm going, where are they going with this? But then you just get hit with this large drama.
The first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes, I think, are still the hardest for me to look at. I'm still triggered by the emotional content of it. And I asked Michael at the end of our LA screening, I said, what do you think when you see that? And he goes, it's something I wanted to make, and it's there. Yeah. And I get very inspired.
One of the things that, for me, in the cathartic part of it, was that I got to write some scenes that I didn't get to live. Mm-hmm. I got to write some conversations that I might have liked to have had, and that was very cool.
And this is full about performers. And this is relatively new in this industry, is it not?
Not for you, but so many of our performers are out. Yes.
Things are changing.
And proudly, and happily, proudly out.
Mitchell and I have been friends for 30 years-ish. And when I knew he left the business, but I called him back and said, I'm going to need someone who I can jump into this relationship within 12 days to shoot this thing. And he...
Wow. And you did it, and we're rolling the credits. So if you want to see this, go to the website to learn about it, right?
After Forever, theseries.com.
And Amazon Prime. After Forever.
Thank you, Michael Slade. Thank you, Kevin Spiritus. And
thank
you, Rob Schuster.
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah. Brush off your... do
you have some dandruff there? We could.
You guys are the best. Definitely check this out. It's extraordinary. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
After Forever. We'll see you next week.